Good morning, this is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind.
Because I am using the camera, and that was just for looks. So there we go, to minimize the distractions. I am your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver, and not with me as usual is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. Haven't heard from him this morning, so I will be contacting him later to figure out what's going on, seeing if he's all good. But for this morning, you have me. And big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Peppermaster, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and CanadianTarot.com. Gotta have a decent show content-wise for you today, but I guess we, since Mr. Grizzly's not here, how my mental health is doing today, and please get some cubs. Tell me how your mental health is doing today. It's pretty good, but yesterday, I will not lie, was a very, very, very tough day, and the day before, up until about 2:00 in the afternoon. Yesterday, the day before, like I had mentioned, was a little bit rough because there was a PTSD moment with regard to the car accident that my sweetie had in June, and then yesterday morning started out pretty rough as well for me, for entirely different reasons. So, which was one of the reasons why the show started late yesterday, because upon finding out the news that we had lost our guest, and we were concerned. It wasn't just I've got a cold. Let's put it that way, without giving too much information away that is not ours to give. So we were definitely concerned for our guest. And then, of course, as you know, over the course of the weekend, I found out about the death of someone who was a very good friend to me in high school and in young adulthood. So, a straight guy, and I was gay at a time where that maybe wasn't not necessarily popular, and therefore I was someone that even though we had lost touch over the years, as some people do, when you become an adult and start living your own lives, the time that he was in my life was very important. So there's a lot going on emotionally. So yesterday morning was a little rough. So when we lost our guest, and I didn't have a show prepared, and then other stuff happened that I won't get into here. I wasn't at my best to be able to deliver a show, but I also didn't have anything prepared, and I didn't particularly want to wing it. But fortunately, as you know, as the morning went on, you stayed here in the chat, and I saw you chatting, and picked up my spirits, and I did notice that I had a couple of things together that I had collated over the week in preparation for Remembrance Day, and that I could do something. And I had intended to do something later in the day, maybe in the afternoon or something, but since you were all still there. And that did help during the morning. Unfortunately, on the way to curling yesterday morning for our match, and it's not something I can be mad about. I'm not mad about it, but it was just one of those one more things. We have to cross town to get there, and yesterday's Remembrance Day, and the curling match was at 11:15. And Kingston's a military town, so it took a little while to get to get to the club yesterday. But everything went well there, and that's while we were there, that's when the day got better, because my Beaver sweetie, out of the blue, surprised me and came to watch my match. He arrived in the third end, and as usual, he was my good luck charm. We won the match, and from that point on, the day got better, a lot better, and it reminded me a bit. It's kind of interesting that it happened on our anniversary and on our 12th, because it reminded me of the day we met. And the thought that came to my head is that sometimes the right person shows up at just the right time to do just the right thing, and everything is better. I got a good one. What can I say? And somebody said something, that's when you know you have a soulmate. The soulmates know. It's like, thank you for saying that, because I actually kind of really needed to hear that today. The day was saved because at I think it was 11:30 in the morning, and I think I had tweeted or something. Um, it's my anniversary, and I thought it's not even noon, and I am already ready for this day to be over. Hashtag bad day, for no reason having anything to do with my sweetie. uh, yes, sweetie, for the save and the win yesterday. Um, I'm a lucky beaver. What can I say? The kids in the chat here. I am looking. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do like I did yesterday, because at the angle that I have to put the camera on the phone, which is a little lower than my phone for the show, it changes things. And especially when I'm looking at the other screen on the other side, it really looks weird when I'm turning. It looks like I'm looking up into an eclipse or something. So this is a little more interesting here. Thanks, Kids and Cubs, for the kind words about everything yesterday. Life comes with speed bumps. Life comes with speed bumps, and you got to roll with them. Some nice comments here from Kit Cassie. Glad you have a loving sweetie to support you, Miss Shadika, but you did an absolutely wonderful job. And Nona Carol, you did great yesterday. Kit Saucy, you do well impromptu. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Kit Linda, you should try improv. I am terrible at improv, oddly enough. I would put it's not that I'm terrible at improv, but I am always terrible at having the first idea. If somebody comes up with the first idea, I am pretty good with yes and like this, but nothing ever comes to me to start a scene like this. Or if we're just having a conversation one-on-one, we're sitting at a pub, whatnot, somebody says something and I can think of something to throw in that might be a little funnier or something, then that way I can improv. But it's like if somebody says like, go improv, nothing happens. It's really weird. It's the one skill I wish I had, and I just in acting, and I just don't. When it comes to improv, I'm a total follower. Total follower. Let's see what else here. Hey, Dan, listen, when life repeatedly kicks you in the privates, you stand up, smile, and share. When sharing, you heal and learn. That is true. And writing has always been my thing for processing and dealing emotions. And going to the hive mind, I mean, sometimes you got to write cryptically, of course, because, you don't want to air all of your dirty laundry out in public. But, if you're slightly creative writer, you can get what you need. And often you get a lot of good advice too, which is kind of nice. Kid Saucy, yes, I see that your your thing here won't lie. I'm in survival mode, and I'm sending you lots of love and hugs. And remember, if you need me, just reach out. Okay, my ear and my shoulder are there. Okay. Kid Frankie, like I said, this too shall pass. Hopefully, life has been rather speed bumpy for a few months, but yes, eventually, you know, things that need to be ironed out iron themselves out, and eventually, like this. But right now, right now, it's bumpy. That's life. There are periods that are tougher than others. I had a very, very, very good swing for the whole 2 years previous to that, right? So I mean, it as the TV show song goes, you take the good, you take the bad, you take them both, and there you have it. So, all right, let's see what else do we have here. Miss Edeka, I used to be that person. People always used to tell me that I made their day. I cared so much about others' feelings. Pandemic changed that a bit. Oh, please don't allow that. Like if you need some time to recharge the battery, that's one thing, but don't let it change those beautiful parts of you. The world's going to need a lot of that in the coming few years. So, yeah, it's like, you nurture your light guard and protect it. You don't dim it. Right? We need it. We need good, empathetic people like this, but self-care and self-management. Yeah. I think we're some of us are going to be working overtime. Let's just put it that way. All right, Kits and Cubs. We have Kit Hugh here saying, if it makes you any better, Dad's feeling better and is home. Glad to report. Kit Hugh, have a good day, and I'm listening on the road. So that's some good news also that I got yesterday from Kit Hugh that brought a lot of relief. Okay. In the news, Kits and Cubs. Yesterday was Remembrance Day, and as usual, all the usual ceremonies with all the usual pomp and circumstance took place at the National Cenotaph in Ottawa on Elgin Street, down by the National Arts Centre. All the events seem to have gone off without a hitch, as usual. For those who go to the ceremonies every year, there was nothing particularly surprising or eventful. It was just a good, solemn ceremony, as they have been known to be and appreciated. And so everything went well there. Governor General was there, Prime Minister was there, the Leader of the Opposition was not there. A lot of people tried to start some stuff online and were not fans of the Leader of the Opposition, but the Leader of the Opposition was at events in Manotick, which I'm pretty sure is in his electoral district. I believe Carleton, Manotick is in the Carleton electoral district. So he was doing his thing. It's not that he wasn't anywhere or evading. The Prime Minister and the Governor General do not speak at the event. The Prime Minister had his message online. And the Governor General did not deliver a video message, from what I can tell, because I was looking for it, but I did not see one that I couldn't tell. But there were on the Governor General of Canada's Twitter feed. There were a lot of things there, and she did have a message uh, that was released like I said, I don't know if she reported it, but it was released. It was a very short one that reads, "On Remembrance Day, we honor the extraordinary contributions of those who sacrificed their lives to protect our freedoms and values. We commend our veterans and members of the Canadian Armed Forces for their steadfast bravery and deep sense of duty, which have earned them the highest respect of our nation and allies worldwide. As Commander-in-Chief, I often meet with serving members of the Canadian Armed Forces and veterans from coast to coast to coast. I am impressed by their versatility and adaptability. They all share a deep commitment to our nation and unmatched professionalism and excellence. As we take a moment to reflect and remember, let us learn the lessons of the past and work towards a future of peace and understanding. To those who have fallen, Canada remembers." Mary Simon, of course, our Governor General. And she was there, of course, in her military regalia as Commander-in-Chief for the ceremony at the Cenotaph. As I mentioned on the show yesterday, the Conservatives did try, as it seems they try to do every year, for some reason, and I do not know why, because it's always a lie, and it's always easily proven to be a lie, but that doesn't stop them from doing it anyway. So on November 8th, the Conservative Party of Canada issued a press release, which Andrew Scheer shared, stating, "Disgusting! Liberals ban chaplains from praying at Remembrance Day ceremonies. Imagine veterans who fought to defend religious freedom that their own government would ban prayer. That's exactly what Justin Trudeau is doing. Read the Conservative statement here." And then it was, the title is "NDP Liberal Government Bans Military Chaplains from Reciting Prayers on Remembrance Day. November 8th, 2024, for immediate release, Ottawa, Ontario. Today, Canadians discovered that the NDP Liberal government are continuing to ban military chaplains from praying during Remembrance Day ceremonies across Canada. Notice the use of the word continuing when it's something that has never started. Fun with words. Conservatives love that. Last year, Trudeau's Minister of National Defence, Bill Blair, promised that, quote, "chaplains are not and will not be banned from prayer on Remembrance Day. But Canadians know that the NDP Liberal government lied." And that is a lie, because if you watched our show last year, we talked about this. And then we showed you clips of the ceremony where Brigadier General Guy Belil, who is the chaplain of the armed forces, led a prayer. And then there were other prayers. They're on video. But Andrew Scheer is saying that the government lied when they said that prayer would not be banned. You gotta wonder about a party that wants us to hate each other this much. Instead, they just gave a one-time exemption. This means that prayers will be banned on Remembrance Day ceremonies on Monday, with the Trudeau government reminding chaplains that no exemptions have been granted this year. So, last year, we told you that they were going to ban prayer. We tell you first that they lied about that. Then we tell you last year there was an exemption. So they didn't lie about that. And this year, you are telling your lie again, saying that last year's exemption, which is a lie. was a one-time exemption, and we're back to banning prayer, which was never banned. That's a lot of mental gymnastics. And if you look at the Remembrance Day ceremony, as I just told you, Brigadier General Jean Bilil was there leading prayer. There was even like a little banner on CBC saying, leads prayer. The word prayer was actually in the banner. So I'm guessing we're going to get another press release somewhere like this. You keep on wanting to, but because we keep on pushing so hard, they keep on granting exemptions. You need to donate to us to make sure that we get another exemption. Yes, I'm not sure what they're going to say next year, but oh well. On top of this, the Trudeau government directive removes mention of the word prayer and replaces it with spiritual reflections. The directive goes on to say that chaplains should, quote, employ a language mindful of the gender-based analysis principles. If any chaplain chooses to ignore this, they have been warned that they will face disciplinary measures. Chaplains serve a vital role in the Canadian Armed Forces. They represent Canadians in various faith and support troops from across Canada. Before the NDP Liberal government banned prayers, they didn't. Chaplains were allowed to recite a prayer with faith-specific language during official functions and made sure to invite those of different beliefs to reflect or pray in whatever way they wished. During World War II, chaplains led prayer on the boats and blah, 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 blah. And then later at the end, actually, I'll read it. During World War II, chaplains led prayer on the boats on the eve of the D-Day landings. Chaplains have provided last rites to dying soldiers in the field. The Prime Minister is now telling Canadians that on Remembrance Day, they cannot even pray for those who fought for our country. All Canadians should be alarmed by this latest NDP Liberal government intrusion. In that paragraph, the implication is that this government might someday try to make it so that if your son or daughter die on the field, that and they would like last rites, well, they will not get them because Trudeau said no. That's the message you are supposed to understand with this being framed this way. Conservatives will fight Trudeau's damaging woke agenda. This is particularly stupid when you're talking about Remembrance Day, right? Because you would assume that those who decided to fight the Nazis were woke as fuck. Right? Stand up for armed forces and bring home common sense. Ottawa, good puppy. You put in all the taglines. Pierre will make sure you get your kibbles and bits. Way to go, Blandy. So yeah, that's what they tried to push. There were prayers, clearly, at the ceremony. And I even believe, if I'm not mistaken, a man I like to refer to as a cool Rev, Reverend Daniel, who you should really follow him. His tagline on his Twitter feed is "Jesus, justice, and a size of jazz hands." So, but he saw a tweet from Pierre Poilievre that said, contrary to what Liberals claimed last year, chaplains are banned from prayers at Remembrance Day ceremonies. Canadians should be free to practice their faith alongside fellow Canadians as we commemorate those who made the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom. So, of course, this was a whole party thing because Pierre did it. And Reverend Daniel said specifically, this is an absolute lie. As many colleagues did yesterday and will again today, I led a Remembrance Day service for the public at a cenotaph, and we prayed. We prayed the Lord's Prayer. I read scripture, and we sang the national and royal anthems, which both mention God. It dishonors the sacrifice of those who have died fighting foreign authoritarian regimes that one who wishes to govern is now using Remembrance Day to do what authoritarians do: spread misinformation, stoke fear, demonize others, and create division, lest we forget. And before MAGA Maples send me more reports about the banning of God, asking national chaplains to multi-faith forces to be sensitive to the language used in public ceremonies to reflect diversity of faith, but no, this is not, quote, banning people from practicing their faith. As usual, they can't tell the difference between, quote, prohibiting the personal practice of faith and prohibiting the imposing of one faith onto others. Boom. That's what it is. So I love this guy. He really is a recommended follow. It's in cups. At Rev Daniel on the old Twitter. There you go. So the ceremonies were fantastic. Um, of course, it was the many anniversaries, including the 80th anniversary of D-Day, also the 10th anniversary of the end of our involvement in the War of Afghanistan. It was the 60th anniversary of something else now that I can't remember off the top of my head, unfortunately. But as it was the 80th anniversary of D-Day, it's a reminder that 14,000 Canadians landed on Juno Beach. 340 were killed and 574 were wounded. And Canada was the nation that suffered the most casualties of any division in the British Army Group on that day. The latest estimates by Veterans Canada says that there are around 7,300 World War II and Korean veterans still alive. The last surviving Canadian veteran of World War I was John Babcock. He died in 2010 at the age of 109. Canada sent 1.1 million soldiers into World War II, which means at the time that 1 out of every 10 Canadians at the time, or 1 out of every 3 adult men, had been sent. Currently, there are 4,400 Canadians deployed around the world on current operations, the biggest being Operation Reassurance, which has 1,900 of them. There you go, kids and cubs. That's about the wrap up. Of course, once I am able to set up the other computer and stuff, which I did not do yesterday because I focused on my anniversary. But once I'm able to figure all of that out, this would be a little better because I'd be able to have clips for you to show. But unfortunately, as I'm MacGyvering it today, I don't have those. I guess the other thing I should probably read into the record officially is what the Prime Minister did have to say with regard to the events to mark the day. Now, of course, as I mentioned, he doesn't speak at the actual ceremony, but he did record a video. Just gonna move this. Whoops, that slipped. Hold on, kids and cubs. I just need to go like this so that I can see both. There we go. Okay. And here it goes. Generation after generation, Canadians have served and sacrificed as members of the armed forces. And today we honor the brave women and men in uniform who serve and defend our country. Now and throughout our history, we pay tribute to our veterans, to those who have been injured in the line of duty, and to all of those who have made the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom, our peace, and our democracy. We owe so much to those who bravely serve, to our veterans, to the fallen, and to the families who love and support them. They are parents, siblings, and friends, and every day, generation after generation, they have stepped up and put their lives at risk to make our country more prosperous, secure, and free. And the past year and a half has been no different. In the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic, members of the Canadian Armed Forces once again answered to the call of duty, risking their safety for the good of others. Time and time again, they show us the meaning of service and sacrifice. And we know there is more to do to support them too, like ensuring the leadership and the culture of our Canadian Armed Forces are worthy of the extraordinary women and men who choose to serve. So this November, like everyone before, we will show our gratitude and respect for their courage by holding them close to our hearts in the form of a poppy. And on the 11th hour, we will honor the depths of their sacrifice with a moment of silence. For those who were lost, both today and yesterday, we will take the time to remember, lest we forget. So that was what the Prime Minister had to say yesterday about that. All right. If you have any thing in the chat, if it comes about how it is that you decided to observe yesterday, please share it. I'd be very curious in knowing what it is that you have done. For some reason, oh, silly me. I'd forgotten that I put it on a list. Be capricious. There we go. Nope, that is not going to work. Okay. I'll just have to move my chair. There we go. That's better. All right. Sorry, kids. This is I appreciate your indulgence here. All right. Let's see. What else do we have here in the chat here? We have Cassie saying, "Whoops, I'm doing it the wrong way here. I said I was going to do it looking at this camera. So there we go. So that way I can be looking a little more at you there. Okay. Let's see. What do we have here? Saucies. Whoops. No, that's about the Nova Scotia election, not there we go. Pet Saucy. I will call religious symbols things, boomer doomers, thingamajigs, etc., from now on. I'm sure that will go over well. Maybe not. Kid Saucy. Once vets understood why they were okay, it's only right-wing nutters and non-military people who seem to have a problem. Yes, indeed. All right. Hits and cups. All right, so we will move on to other things. What with everything that is going on in the world and the changes in the United States, particularly, which will affect the whole world, the world keeps turning, and the work still needs to be done. And it's as in life, right? In politics, as in life, when you get thrown a curveball, you have to deal with the curveball, and you still have to do all the housekeeping, right? That is required of you in order. You still got to go to work. You still got to do your job. You still got to take care of the kids if you have them. That stuff is all still there, and so it is for Canada as well. So the Prime Minister, for example, is heading east for his first face-to-face meeting with the newly installed Premier of New Brunswick, Susan Holt, whose provincial Liberal team scored an upset victory over the incumbent Progressive Conservative government led by then Premier Blaine Higgs last month. This is according to iPolitics, joining the Prime Minister and the Premier for the closed-door huddle, which, as per the notice, will take place somewhere in the Greater Fredericton area, will be Public Safety Minister Dominic LeBlanc, who is the cabinet lead for the province, and New Brunswick Intergovernmental Affairs Minister Jean-Claude Damour. And so that will be happening. But also, the Prime Minister will be getting ready to head on to Peru for some meetings. And I'm just going to look this up here because I thought I had the article pulled, but I do not. The Prime Minister is going to what is called the APEC Economic Leaders Summit. So that is the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation Economic Leaders Meeting. And it's going to be held in Lima, Peru. And then he's going to the G20's Leader Summit in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. The APEC economies represent more than 60% of global GDP and offer dynamic opportunities for Canada and Canadian businesses. At the APEC Economic Leaders Meeting from November 15th to 16th, Prime Minister Trudeau will engage with other APEC leaders to deepen cooperation and advance opportunities for people on both sides of the Pacific. Building on Canada's Indo-Pacific strategy, the Prime Minister will work on behalf of Canadians to strengthen trade and investment, grow the economy, and secure good-paying jobs. Prime Minister Trudeau will then attend the G20 Leaders Summit from November 18th to 19th. During the summit, he will collaborate with international partners on shared priorities with a focus on addressing global inequality. He will stress the need for countries to work together to the benefit of our peoples so economies can grow, workers can succeed, and supply chains can continue to become stronger. He will advance efforts to promote gender equality and climate action. In his role as co-chair of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals Advocates Group, he will also reiterate Canada's commitment to the Social Development Goals and the need for accelerated global action to achieve these goals. Throughout the trip, Prime Minister Trudeau will advocate for peace, democracy, and the rules-based international order. He will highlight the importance of working together to build a more secure, stable, and prosperous future for everyone, including in Ukraine, Haiti, and the Middle East. There's a quote attributed to him stating, quote, "When countries work together, we can make life better for everyone. I look forward to attending the APEC Economic Leaders Meeting and G20 Leaders Summit and working on behalf of Canadians to secure good-paying jobs, grow the economy, and ensure every generation gets a fair chance to succeed." And that is directly from the Prime Minister, Government of Canada Prime Minister's website, stating what it is that they are going to do there. So the Prime Minister has to, keep on representing us on the international stage while everybody is preparing for the advent of another world with Trump. Most likely, I'm not sure if the House has been completely called yet, but Arizona, the last state, had been called for Trump. Those counts are final, but it is looking. Some people are saying that there is maybe still some hope for maybe a one-seat victory by the Democrats with all the seats left in California, but it would be it would be a surprise. It's not impossible, but it would be a surprise. So, assuming that the surprise does not happen, the first 2 years are pretty much, unfettered Trump with a cadre of people who would be very happy to help them destabilize stuff. And with the only potential saving grace is that they end up very quickly hating each other more than they hate everybody on which they campaigned to get revenge on, and they kind of, uh, implode. You know? So, and some sniping apparently has already started. So, there might be a good chance of that. So, but yes, stuff just keeps on moving for Canada. Right, these international meetings keep happening, and as they're preparing the train, I'm sure there are going to be a lot of pull-asides and hallway discussions about what the hell do we do now when it comes to this. But hey, when it comes to this, all the nations in the world are now swimming in the same ocean, even though we may not all be in the same boats when it comes to this. That is going to be. It is going to be exhausting. There is no doubt uh, for every nation on Earth to absolutely have to have um, a Trump management team, and how much time that is going to take away from every nation on the Earth to be able to focus on taking care of its own internal stuff. That was one of the things that happened during the first 4 years of Trump, is that I'm sure the Prime Minister was not able to get as much done here as he would have liked to have done here, because we're always wondering when there's going to be another temper tantrum, another tariff, another another PR war, or another whatever it is, right? So it's when the and it's all hands on deck. We know when it's your largest trading partner and your biggest defense ally, and all that kind of stuff. So, but there's a lot of nations in the world that are going to have this type of. He's high maintenance. This is the best way I can call it. It's like if you're thinking about a relationship, a romantic one. He's he's just super high maintenance, and it's exhausting. So, but that's going to be reality at all of these meetings, um, unfortunately, for the next little while. And as I said, the world just keeps on turning. Like this, you still have to deal with the problems. It's just that it's going to be a whole lot more harder. There's going to be a lot more speed bumps. There's going to be people actively trying to shove sticks in your spokes as you're trying to gain speed, and more so than usual, right? But hey, uh, you adapt. You do the best you can, and uh, hopefully, uh, world is able to get through this bit with as little pain as possible. But who knows? Uh, there's a lot of angry people, and angry people uh, make interesting decisions that are maybe not always necessarily playing a long game here, but that's okay. Um, According to Katie O'Malley, here, there's still no word on when, or for that matter, if Prime Minister Justin Trudeau still intends to rearrange his front bench lineup, not just as a belated response to the ongoing electoral angst within his caucus, but in anticipation of the now pending political realignment south of the border. While rumors of a cabinet shuffle have been sorry, I'll try that again. While rumors of a cabinet shuffle have been circulating in both official and unofficial Ottawa for months, when it failed to materialize ahead of the fall sitting, and later during the traditional mid-October pause in regular House proceedings, a new theory emerged. Namely, that Trudeau had decided to hold off on making any substantial adjustments to his ministerial roster until after the US election, which, given the outcome of the presidential race, seems like it might have been a, brace yourself, smart move. Did the Prime Minister just get a compliment in the press? Wow. Okay. Was not ready for that. Although, in all fairness, Katie O'Malley is known to be rather fair. So, but again, something I say about the Prime Minister, one of his attributes is him being able to play the long game. It's not very appreciated, unfortunately, because, you know, you very rarely win the nanosecond. It takes time for things to play out. But yes, he could have panicked after the loss of the by-election, says, okay, I'm going to reshuffle my cabinet now. Or he could have, said, okay, I don't want it to look like I'm panicking, but I'm panicking. So when we have that break around Thanksgiving, I'll shuffle it then. Yeah, that's what I'll do. It's like, or it's like you just look a little further down the calendar. It's like there's going to be a U.S. election. And we now know, as of 100 days prior to the election, when Joe Biden stepped aside as the candidate for the Democrat Party, that regardless of the result, we're going to have a new president. Of course, there's going to be a cabinet shuffle after that, right? So all potential narratives of the prime minister is panicking or disappear, because you would expect a nation like Canada, who is so codependent with the United States or its existence, that a change in government, and the more radical the change there, probably the more radical the change needed here, would naturally and organically be called for. So if the prime minister makes a cabinet change, let's say after the House rises on December 17th, or earlier, if the House decides to rise earlier, as often likes to happen. You always have these conservatives say, no, we're going to take it to the wall. We'll sit throughout the whole Christmas holidays or throughout the whole summer if we have to, in order to make the government comply with our version of the budget or our version of this, or lead government the way we would. And then, they like break off for the summer 5 days early or something. Way to stand by your convictions. But, Constrapiece theater, right? So, so yeah, we might have this situation here again, because right now this is the last extended break in regular House proceedings before the MPs fall head into the final lap of the fall sitting, which is due to wrap up for the year no later, and even possibly earlier than December 17th, which would give any newly promoted or reassigned ministers a few days to settle into their new roles before facing the opposition. So, interesting that the Prime Minister waiting to shuffle the cabinet is now seen by at least one person in the media, although be it a very influential person in the media, to have been a potentially smart move. Hey, we'll take it. Now, there are a couple of other things going on here in Canada with regard to some labor issues and a certain amount of disruptions. One that is upcoming, potentially, because as of 2 hours ago, CBC has reported that Canada Post workers have given a 72-hour notice to strike. Quote, the union representing Canada, not quote, but as the article says here from CBC, the union representing Canada Post workers said it will begin in a legal strike position on Friday, exactly 1 year after talks on a new contract began. The Canadian Union of Postal Workers, CUPW, said in a statement early Tuesday its executive board was giving the required 72 hours notice for both its rural and urban mail carrier bargaining unions. The union said that despite talks that began November 15th, 2023, quote, the parties remain far apart on many issues, including on wage increases, pensions, and medical leave. CUPW was in a legal strike position as of November 3rd after a legally mandated cooling off period. And last month, over 95% of both urban and rural workers backed the strike mandate, the union has said. But in the statement early Tuesday from CUPW President Jan Simpson, the union said it hasn't decided if a job action will take place immediately, saying, quote, it will depend on Canada Post's actions at the bargaining table in the days to come. Canada Post has said in recent strike-related statements that it is at a, quote, critical juncture and that, quote, deteriorating financial situation could require the company to revisit its proposals. It warned that continued labor strife will adversely affect the company and have consequences for customers over the upcoming busy holiday periods, especially in rural communities. Crown Corporation recently proposed annual wage increases amounting to 11.5% over 4 years and has said it wants to negotiate, quote, a more flexible and affordable delivery model that would include parcel delivery service 7 days a week. Canada Post said in recent news release that it lost $490 million in the first half of 2024. Losses before tax for 2023 were $748 million due to competition from a post-pandemic surge in parcel delivery services, lower volumes of transaction mail, and higher delivery costs. So that might be going on. And then in other news, we have some port strikes, job actions at port strikes happening. So, or I think it was over the weekend or something, or maybe a week ago, that there was a looming lockout that looked like was going to come, and there would have been a lockout of 700 unionized foremen at the BC ports because the BC Maritime Employers Association said after receiving a 72-hour strike notice that it would have no choice but to lock out the port workers given the strike threat. The strike threat was estimated at the time that would cause a situation where $800 million worth of goods would be stuck every day, that the dispute would drag on. Talks were set to resume on that weekend. The union representative said that they had been ordered back to the bargaining table for talks with the BC Maritime Employers Association and that they would be joined by federal mediators when they'd meet on the afternoon. So this was over this past weekend. Federal Labor Minister Steve McKinnon had earlier criticized the lack of progress in the talks, saying that there had been a concerning lack of urgency. Unfortunately, the meetings were short-lived because the union and the employer met separately with the mediator And then the International Longshoremen and Warehouse Union said that the BC Maritime Employer Association ended the talks in less than an hour. The parties involved report that no progress was made. Yes, not if the talks ended in less than an hour, and no future talks had been scheduled at that time. Pascal Chan with the Canadian Chamber of Commerce is quoted as saying, "Unfortunately, this growing trend of labor disruptions is advertising that supply chain issues are something of a way of life here, especially over the last couple of years, and this puts contracts for Canadian businesses at risk." Now, that's at the BC ports. In Montreal, it seems that activity had already been partially affected by some job action, and the federal minister of labor also said that he had no intention of intervening to end the disagreement there as well. Employers had made what was their final offer after workers had voted in favor of a 72-hour strike notice, and the Maritime Employer Association threatened to lock out the workers by 9 p.m. on Sunday if the offer was not accepted, and both have followed through. So the offer was not accepted, and the lockout did happen. Michelle Murray from the Port of Montreal Longshoremen Union says work schedules are an essential aspect of the impasse. So that is what's going on with those stories as of this weekend. And I think there might be a little more update here, according to iPolitics. This is Marco Vigliotti, who says two of Canada's largest ports have been fully or partially shut down for over a week because of labor disputes that show no signs of ending. But insiders say the federal Liberals only have limited options to restart work at the ports in BC and Montreal, all of which risk losing the support of the NDP, the only opposition party willing to prop up the increasingly shaky minority Trudeau government. Mélanie Richer, an NDP strategist and principal with Earnscliffe Strategies, said the NDP would never support the Liberals on back-to-work legislation, and unlike in previous parliaments, it's doubtful the Conservatives would back it either. Under Pierre Poilievre, the Conservatives haven't signaled support for back-to-work legislation in previous labor disruptions, a move that Richer said was part of his push to win over working-class voters, similar to what Donald Trump successfully pulled off in this month's U.S. presidential election. Quote, I think this time the Conservatives just want to go to an election, so no matter what, the Conservatives are going to vote what the Liberals put forward. And there's no way the NDP would support anything that curtails workers' rights, she said. It's a gamble either way, really. And as well, in this case, I'm sure the Bloc Québécois probably wouldn't want to do anything that would trample workers' rights. So when Steve McKinnon says that the government has no intention of interfering, he might sincerely mean that. And there's no reason to believe that he doesn't. The only reason that Steve McKinnon intervened in the rail strike is because both employers managed to, they didn't have to talk to conspire since there was only two. One just had to take the lead and the other had to decide to follow. But both decided to ensure that there would be lockouts or strikes simultaneously as to shut down the entire rail system simultaneously. Right? Because usually their contract negotiations would happen in different years to try to make it such that there could be no such situation. But this time they saw the opportunity, so they took it, which did force the federal government's hand. But in this case, it doesn't seem that the federal government is willing to have its hand forced on this one. And it probably doesn't have luxury to it of doing it as well. Because, yes, back to work legislation requires it to be passed. And if the Bloc and the NDP are not going to support having workers' rights curtailed, and you know that the Conservatives will certainly vote for back to work legislation, or maybe not, just to embarrass the government. There is no point in putting it out there. There's absolutely nothing good that could happen to the Liberals. So this is going to be a situation, regardless of the hit to the economy that it comes with, that is going to have to be resolved at the bargaining table. I don't think that the employers can expect the government to come riding in to save them on this one, because the government would have no allies in making that happen. So this is a situation where all the pieces on the chess table are actually aligned for a better result for workers, ironically, with the Conservatives lending the biggest assist to making that happen, although unwittingly and very involuntarily. But hey, because when you want the liberals gone so bad, you're willing to be inconsistent on everything else your political ideology says you're supposed to subscribe to. I guess these are the decisions you make. There you go. So yes, some definitely some labor action stuff going on, kits and cubs, and also in the news. A little late with this because it has happened before, but the workers at the International Association of Machinists voted 59% to end their strike action at Boeing. It's the first time in a while that Boeing has had some good news. It was the most expensive strike in the US in a quarter of a century. 33,000 union members walked off the job on September 13th, but they got a 4-year contract which includes an immediate raise of 13%, followed by 9% in each of the following 2 years and 7% in the final year. So that is some pretty good terms there. But the news doesn't get better for Boeing because it seems that Boeing is looking at selling off some minor companies that they own that don't have much relation to its core business. And there's some reporting from the Wall Street Journal that suggests that Boeing wants to get out of their space-related enterprise as well. And as you know, Boeing is having a little issue with the mission where there are 2 people that are pretty much I won't say lost in space. They're not lost, but they're sort of stranded in space until they can find a way to get them back because they had a mission that didn't go well. Boeing also happens to be America's largest exporter. So there's that. So yeah, when things go wrong with Boeing, it has a rather sizable impact on the U.S. economy, and that company has been having a lot of trouble for a long time. And I am surprised that there hasn't actually been some overt action by the board to try and boot a few people. Maybe that's coming. Who knows? Let's see, what else do we have here? And then there's another thing here with regard to labor issues that I'm going to look up because I don't really know much about it, but I did make note of it. And it's that the Premier of Quebec, François Legault, has announced a freeze until the end of June 2025 of the regular program for qualified workers to establish themselves in Quebec. And says that in the spring, the government should be leading consultations to determine immigration levels for 2026 to 2028. So I'm just going to take a look at that to see exactly what he means, because there's okay. So this, I'm seeing stuff from a while ago here, like in August. So this may have been his plans, his announcement to do it, and he might have done it, which is what happened on the weekend. But he announced a 6-month freeze on separate. Oh no, that's different. That's a moratorium that started on September 3rd. Okay, so not sure what the most recent freeze is here that they are mentioning, but it was just on this weekend. So let's go to Radio Canada here. This is from October 31st, so this is probably more it. The government has slapped a moratorium on 2 main pathways to permanent residency. Yes, the government of Quebec is suspending 2 of those pathways. Over the next few months, the Legault government will stop issuing Quebec selection certificates, that's our CSQs, an essential document in the immigrant process for foreign students and economic immigrants applying through 2 of its main pathways to permanent residency, says Immigration Minister Jean-François Roberge. This freeze will target those wishing to immigrate to Quebec under the regular skilled worker program and the Quebec Experience program. The moratorium could extend until the end of next spring. According to Radio Canada, the province will use this time to clear out the backload will use the time to clear out the backload of applications in the system and to reevaluate its immigration policy. This pause in the selection of new permanent immigrants will have no impact on the next permanent immigration targets planned for 2025. I think that might have changed. So it looks like they're leading some consultations, but maybe not for 2025, but leading on for 2026. Haberge confirmed reports of the moratorium in a post on X Wednesday evening. Quote, "Our objective is clear. We want to equip ourselves with the necessary means to better regulate immigration in Quebec." Haberge also opened the door to a reduction in permanent immigration targets in Quebec, saying that scenario, quote, "will also be seriously considered by the government." He added the government will take into account people on temporary work and study permits in Quebec in its next multi-year immigration plan. Following reports on some private colleges mainly serving as channels to obtain citizenship, Quebec Immigration Minister Jean-François Roberge has tabled a bill to reduce how many foreign students are in the province. The decision comes a week after the federal government announced plans to cut the projected number of newcomers. The Trudeau government is cutting the projected number of new permanent residents from 485,000 to 395,000 in 2025, with further cuts to 380,000 in 2026 and 365,000 in 2027. So those are, yes. And then Quebec is also doing a really weird thing with its language training. And it seems that it is making some cuts to its programs, which is really interesting because they recently passed laws, for example, for foreign students coming to Canada. Now, like if they wanted to go to McGill, that they had to take certain number of hours of French in order to become somewhat fluent, and was now a requirement. And I believe that they changed the rules, saying that if you were someone who was coming to Quebec who didn't speak French, you had about a year that they would give you grace where you could interact with the government like in another language, but after a year you needed to have acquired enough French to be able to do that. That would no longer be there for you. But they're making cuts to the adult education centers that these people would go to be able to learn the French. The government has mandated them to learn in a ridiculously short period of time. So I'm not understanding this logic here. But according to CBC Montreal, Mintu Pan joined dozens of teachers at a French language adult education center in Quebec City on Friday morning as he held up a sign objecting to cutting French language classes across the province. "I learned a lot here," said Pan, who has been learning French at the Centre d'éducation des adultes Le Phoenix for the past 2 months since he moved from Vietnam. And the sign that he has says "Fermer des classes" with a dollar sign for the two S's in class, "ça manque de classe." So with also the dollar signs. It says basically closing down classes is a lack of class. For him, the course enables him to continue living in Quebec. However, school service centers across the province have stopped accepting new students for French language classes due to financial uncertainty. 8 of the 30 French language teachers in the local Centre des services scolaires et des coureurs have had their jobs cut. Marie-Claude Choquette, vice president of the Teachers Union, Syndicat de l'enseignement des deux rives, said eliminating those positions will lead to several cases classes no longer being offered. Quote, "We believed, apparently wrongly, that learning French was important to this government. It must review its decision and change course," Choquette said in a news statement published Thursday. The decision to stop accepting students comes after the Legault government capped funding for French language courses as the province struggles to meet rising demand for classes. Quebec's education ministry is requiring school service centers not to exceed the funding levels allocated to French language learning during the pandemic in 2020-2021. During a scrum at the Assemblée nationale on Thursday, Education Minister Bernard Drinville cited the increase in immigration as the reason for capping funding for French classes. Quote, "There's a limit to what we can pay, and there's a limit also to what the taxpayer can pay," Drinville said. Quote, "The number of people has exploded because of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's immigration policy. This is on him." In Montreal, the Centre des services scolaires Marguerite Bourgeois confirmed on Thursday it would cease enrolling new students for French language classes at the start of the next session, putting an end to 12 teachers' contracts. Quote, "Currently, we do not know what solutions the Education Ministry or Ministry of Immigration are considering to compensate for the shortfall," a statement said from the school board. Consequently, we have decided to stop registering new students at the start of the new session. Facing job loss, 40 French language teachers at the Outremont Adult Education Center in Montreal, which is under the CSSMB, don't remember what that is. The Centre de Service Scolaire, so the Marguerite Bourgeois board that I mentioned earlier. Okay. So they wrote to the Immigration and French Language Minister Jean-François Roberge last week, bemoaning, quote, the dysfunction of the government's current French language learning system. In the letter signed by more than 200 Quebec French language educators, they criticized the government's decision to redirect funding for adult education centers to the Immigration Ministry's French language training classes and expressed concern over the fact that the government's online portal to register for the classes is only available in French. Quote, we often have to deal with 15 mother tongues, 3 or 4 alphabets, migration, traumas, disabilities, completely different education levels, and complicated paths, the letter said. But we are qualified and experienced. Since January, there have been over 35,000 people waiting to sign up for French classes in the province. The average time to register for a part-time course between April 1st to August 30th was nearly 81 business days, according to the Immigration Ministry. The Outremont Adult Education Center serves 400 French language students across 24 daytime and night classes. Unlike online courses, adult education centers provide a community to students who go on cultural field trips throughout the year with their classmates, from visits to libraries to eating at a sugar shack, the teachers noted. They added that they're very concerned about the prospect of the Immigration Ministry managing, quote, the entire francisation process. In Trois-Rivières, at the Centre des Services Scolaires du Chemin du Roi Syndicat de l'Enseignement des Vieilles Forges, President Stéphane Bélan said that the number of full-time French language students at the organization dropped from 265 to 87 full-time students this year, and there are plans to cut the most advanced French classes. Out of 12 teachers, 3 have been dismissed, and the others risk losing several hours of work, Bélan said. At Friday's protest in Quebec City, Catherine Saint-Louis, a teacher for 7 years, said she knows colleagues across Quebec losing their jobs. Quote, we're worried for the future because we don't know if we're going to be able to continue teaching for the whole school year. We're worried for our students, said Saint-Louis. She says taking away the opportunity to learn French impedes immigrants' ability to be part of their community. Quote, the government keeps saying that French is important. We need to protect it, said Saint-Louis. Quote, but then some of our colleagues are losing their jobs and people are waiting for like weeks and weeks, even months, to be able to start French classes. Afika Youssouf, a postdoctoral researcher at McGill University and French language student at Outremont Adult Education Center, said taking part-time language classes has been instrumental to her integrating into Quebec society after moving to the province from Malaysia 14 years ago. She recently published opinion pieces in Montreal French language newspapers Le Devoir and La Presse, advocating for funding language classes in adult education centers. Quote, I want to see others have the same opportunity to integrate fully with their neighbors and contribute to the cultural and social fabric of Quebec, she said, noting that the government's decision to remove financial incentives for students enrolled in part-time language classes presents a barrier for newcomers. Quote, I hope the government's actions can align with what they espouse to prioritize, which is to protect the French language, she said. So yeah, kids and camps, it's a decision that I don't particularly understand as well. Oh, it's too bad. But I mean, I understand that Quebec has more pressures than any other province. They have received the greatest amount, and there is something to be said for the government showing up with some money to help with that. Dreville is correct in that it is the immigration policy and the decisions that we made with regard to that that have created, with Roxham Road and how long it took us to secure the safe third country agreement stuff with the United States and all that kind of thing. But and therefore, legitimately, it's not 100% federal government's fault, but legitimately, there is a case for the federal government. The federal government does bear some responsibility. It should be showing up with some cash to help the province cover those additional educational costs. Now, of course, you have to have the teachers to meet the demand as well, because it's not always about the money. But since they're firing teachers, I'm thinking it's maybe not lack of teachers that's the issue in this case. But yes, as for the other things too, in terms of housing and extra sheltering and all that kind of stuff, there is a role for the federal government to play here. The provinces normally on this show, we do really have our premiers are the problem, and often they are. But in this particular case in Quebec, and when Mayor Olivia Chow was making the same case in Toronto, um, you know, the federal government is the lead on the immigration policy when it comes to this, and therefore, if the federal government does do things that force the provinces to incur extra costs, the federal government should be showing up with some money. So they do have a legitimate case on this particular thing. All right, let's see what else I might have for you today, kids and cubs. I see that the chat is very, very, very active, and that is definitely making me happy, kids and cubs. Thank you so much for interacting in such a lively manner and being so delightful with each other. I always love after the show going back and then reading all the chat. So thank you for such a lively conversation. You guys really, it makes me happy. Even if you're not talking about what it is I'm mentioning here, right? Like this, you just keep the conversation going. Because I know sometimes it veers in and out. Sometimes the conversation is about what I mentioned, and sometimes you guys get going on a topic all of your own. And all of that is good. It makes me quite happy to see you all so engaged. Let's see what else I have here. Yes, I did mention this yesterday a little bit. The Novus getting to the election in Nova Scotia. And I saw that there was a comment earlier in the chat about what was going on. And unfortunately, it's gone too far away, so I don't know what it is. But I believe it was Kit Saucy that was giving us a development, and I can't go back and find it to read it into the show. But if you remember what it is that you had said, Saucy, I might be able to add it soon here. But according to CBC's Luke Ettinger, a candidate for the Nova Scotia NDP has apologized and is no longer running for the party in the provincial election after her comments on Israel and the Holocaust drew concern from Jewish organizations. On Friday, the Atlantic Jewish Council and the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs released a joint statement about social media posts they say were made by Tammy Jakeman, who was on the ballot for NDP in Eastern Passage. The organizations described the comments on Israel and the Holocaust as hurtful, inflammatory, and, quote, deeply troubling. Any candidate that would hold those views, doesn't matter the party or an independent, we would be concerned, Mark David, president of the Atlantic Jewish Council, said in an interview on Sunday. David said two posts to X by Jakeman in 2023, which were flagged by the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs, quote, accused General of Israel of genocide, demeaned Holocaust remembrance efforts, and described Israel as, quote, happiest when terrorizing Palestinians. The statement asked NDP leader Claudia Chender why Jakeman was allowed to run under the party banner. It also asks the party to separate itself from the remarks. CBC has not been able to independently verify the content of the post. Jakeman's X account appears to have been deleted, and that was on November 9th. I'm not sure if they have been able to verify the content since. The party told CBC on Saturday that Jakeman had handed in her resignation. A statement from the party said Jakeman shares the party's, quote, belief that the focus of our campaign must remain on delivering solutions to the issues facing Nova Scotians. Quote, New Democrats are committed to ensuring the safety and dignity of all members of the Jewish community and Nova Scotians of all faiths. We recognize that everyone running for office has a responsibility to ensure that their comments do not cause undue harm, said the statement. The party declined a request for an interview on the subject, but said they officially notified Elections Nova Scotia to remove Jakeman as a candidate before 3:30 p.m. Saturday. The nomination deadline on November 6th, means that no other NDP candidate can be nominated for Eastern Passage. However, Jakeman could run as an independent. So that's what happened there. Not much any additional development from what I had picked up there. Since we're speaking about elections as well, here we go again, kids and cubs. But a federal by-election has been called in the BC electoral district of Cloverdale, Langley City. Voters will go to the polls on December 16th. Liberal MP John Aldag resigned his seat last May to run for the provincial NDP, and unfortunately that was not a winning gamble for him because he lost against the BC Conservative candidate in that electoral district. So yeah, another by-election coming. Not sure how safe a district that is, but there are no safe districts really at the moment for the Liberals, given the very, very strong mood out there for change and just the general overall anti-incumbent, global anti-incumbency vibe, and the sheer number of Canadians that say that the nation is on the wrong track. So, and again, by-elections are consequence-free time to send a message to the federal government that it needs to shape up. So we'll see what happens there. But I mean, it really would be nice for the Liberals if they could win when I don't know how that one is going to end up. And I don't know much about how things stand there at the moment, but it doesn't. I would assume that general trends are that things are probably not the best there. I'm going to go take a look for you, kids and cubs, at 338.com because they have the list of writings here, and it was Cloverdale, I believe it was. No, or Langley. Interesting. Okay, so it's not Cloverdale, or did I have the wrong? Cloverdale, Langley City is one that it is. Maybe it's just not in alphabetical order. Nope. All right, then I was wrong. Unless these are provincial writings rather than federal writings. Oh, there we go. No, that's very clever. Unless it's unless it'll be a redistricted writing. That could be the situation there. All right. Well, I don't know where things stood there. I was trying to see if 338 had some projections of where things stood at the moment with regard to polling. Cloverdale, Langley City, looking at the last election, Aldag won 39.2 over the Conservative candidate, 36.1. So it is a relatively close electoral district, and it's one that swings. In 2019, Tamara Jansen, who was beaten by John Aldag, had defeated John Aldag 37% to 35%. And then Aldag was representing it in 2015. And then he had won at 45 to 34, which was a bit of a better margin here. But see, so yes, 2015 Liberal, 2019 Conservative, 2021 Liberal. So it's one of those writings that swings. The Conservative Liberal candidate for the race will be Madison Fleischer. The Conservative candidate will be Tamara Jansen again, who was the representative between 2019 and 2011. So she probably has the greatest name recognition, and given so yeah, that definitely puts the edge for her and for the Conservatives to take that seat in the by-election. And then the People's Party has already nominated Ian Kennedy. The Greens and the NDP have not yet nominated their candidate for that by-election. And if I'm going to what the CBC here has to say about it, the call comes a little under 6 months from the time that Aldag did resign. When he lost in the provincial election. He had gained just under 30% of the vote after final results were released. Madison Fleischer, who's running for the Liberals, is a local business owner and community leader. Quote, I'm fighting to make life more affordable, deliver strong public health care, take bold climate action, and create new local jobs and an economy that works for everyone in our community, he said in a news release. Sorry, not he said in a news release. Fleischer said in a news release Sunday. I'm sorry, my tongue is getting the best of me today. The by-election for the federal seat is the 11th such campaign since the 2021 federal election. Cloverdale Langley City covers an area of Surrey, BC, as well as the entire city of Langley. The 2021 census showed there were around 130,000 residents there. Campaigns in Cloverdale Langley City have been closely fought during the previous two elections, with Aldag losing by fewer than 1,500 votes in 2019 to the federal Conservatives and winning by about 1,650 votes in 2021. And my personal note here is that if Cloverdale Langley City covers an area of Surrey, British Columbia, I believe, if I remember correctly, in the most recent provincial election, most of Surrey went to John Rustad's BC Conservatives, which would increase the odds that the Liberals might lose the seat on a by-election day. Tamara Jansen, who's I'm not sure if they don't have anything for her there. Okay. So I thought they maybe had some description of who she was here in the article, but they do not. Elections Canada says there will be 4 advanced voting days from December 6th to 9th at assigned polling stations in the Cloverdale Langley City District. Registered voters can also cast a ballot at the Elections Canada office between now and December 10th. To vote by mail, voters have to apply by 6 p.m. Pacific time on December 10th and return their ballot by mail or in person at the Elections Canada office before polls close on December 16th. So if you have a mail-in ballot, make sure that you mail it in a few days before December 16th to give it time to get there. All right. So yes, big by-election coming up. Doesn't look too promising, unfortunately, for the Liberals there. All right, what else do I have for you, kids and cubs? Yes, there was a national commemorative service over the course of the weekend to pay respects to former lawyer, judge, and Senator Murray Sinclair. Greater than 2,000 people attended. He is the first Indigenous person to be recognized with a national commemorative service. He is, of course, best known for chairing the Truth and Reconciliation Commission into Residential Schools, which laid out 94 calls to action, on which we haven't been doing all that great, to be totally honest. When he was born, Indigenous people were not even allowed to vote unless they gave up their Indigenous status. His son, Nigan St. Clair, said at the ceremony that his father was often the lone voice of dignity against the wall of callousness. And Premier Wab Kinew, who also spoke at the event, said that, and who was also sworn in by Murray Sinclair, which must have been quite a moment to be the person swearing in Canada's first Indigenous Premier, said, Murray found his greatest meaning in his kids and his grandkids and his late wife Catherine. You know who you are as Anishinaabe. You know who you are as Anishinaabe. You who are practitioners of our One spirituality, you who love one another so unconditionally, then you that Murray authored his greatest work, and within you burns the hope that the Mazaneki Shakibun had for the future of our nation. Sinclair was laid to rest in the traditions of the Nadawan people. Governor General Mary Simon was there and said of him that he was the voice of truth. Mary Wilson, who was Sinclair's co-commissioner, said, quote, you know, we don't have a long history in Canada of recognizing Indigenous greatness in its midst. Sinclair passed away at the age of 73. As I mentioned before, a huge loss to the nation, huge loss to the Indigenous community. Such a wonderful man. The premier of Manitoba in the Manitoba legislature said of him, Murray Sinclair was a great Canadian, great Manitoban, and a great Anishinaabe. His career stands as the legacy of public service and deep commitment to truth, fairness for all people who live on these lands. He was the first Indigenous person named to the Provincial Court of Queen's Bench in Manitoba. And he was the first, and he will also be remembered as one of the best. Appointed Co-Commissioner of Aboriginal Justice Inquiry, which laid bare systemic racism in institutions and is considered a foundational perspective on systems relationship with Indigenous people. He also led the Pediatric Cardiac Surgery Inquest, an important study which helps to improve heart care as it is delivered to the most vulnerable young Manitobans in our province. The penultimate moment of his career, however, came as he led the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada. Here, we see Mr. Sinclair's brilliance. In fact, that took on a process that was very divisive, that could split Canadians apart, and instead used it to forage calls to action to bring us all together for the future of this great country, and to ask us to live up to that phrase that we have been taught by residential school survivors, that every child matters. It will be a long time before our nation produces another person the caliber of Murray Sinclair. You showed us that there is no reconciliation without truth. We should hold dear in our hearts the words that our nation is on the cusp of a great new era, and that we must all, quote, dare to live greatly together, end quote. Murray Sinclair was the living embodiment of reconciliation in this country. And today, now that he has begun his journey to the spirit world, each of us as Canadians is forced to contemplate how we will continue on this important work now that he has left us. When a forest loses one of its giant cedars, it's important for the rest of the trees to ensure that the next generation can grow strong. I send all my love to his kids and to his grandkids. As Murray is now reuniting with his late wife, Catherine, on a personal level, Minister Sinclair has been there my entire life. I also want to remind Manitobans of what we witnessed just over a year ago. Minister Sinclair presided over our government swearing-in ceremony. He administered our oaths of office, and on that day he told us something that is remarkable in its wisdom, but also in its simplicity. He said, and I quote verbatim, "You have to learn to love the people even when they do not love you," end quote. You have to learn the people even when they do not love you. Murray's heart is present in these words. To love one another unconditionally, whether we are Indigenous or non-Indigenous, survivor or supporter, family or merely family we haven't yet met. He asked us to love one another no matter what. This is the legacy that Murray Sinclair is leaving to us as Canadians. And in return, on behalf of the province of Manitoba, I say, we love you, Murray, always. As he looks up to the sky and says, we need more wob canoes, man. We need more wob canoes, and we definitely need more Murray Sinclairs. That's the stuff, man. That's the stuff. That's leadership. That's statesmanship right there. And again, I cannot say how happy I am, as Mary Wilson says here, that we are adding to our history. Very, very, very short history, and not rich enough history. But hopefully that change of recognizing Indigenous greatness in our midst, among us. There was also a beautiful comment, I'm not mistaken, by Natan Obed, if I'm not mistaken, from Inuit uh, Taparit Kanatami. I'm not mistaken. No, no, that's about another issue. All right. I think I do have everything that I noted with regard to Murray Sinclair. Just want to double check because this man would definitely deserve that we take a moment or two to make sure that we get everything. But yes, we have. So again, Mr. Sinclair, I hope that whatever ceremonies are been done, that they sang for you one heck of a traveling song. So, and yeah, thank you for everything. I'm actually welling up a bit, getting a little emotional on that one. Ooh, okay. The good ones die young, right? Man. So looking at the chat here and seeing if we have anything here. Yes, Kitladam. I read North of Nowhere by Mary Wilson. She was one of the TRC commissioners along with Sinclair and Littlechild. She has some great stories about him in the book while they were working together. Kit Carroll. He should be included in our history books. His legacy should always be remembered. There you go. Kit Toronto Dan. Mr. Sinclair is a legend. Indeed. I would agree. Kit Saucy. Support WAP canoes, encourage them to run. Help protect them when the pressure mounts. Indeed. Yes, so Mary Sinclair, rest in power. Right. See if I've got something else for you. A little Canadians that make us proud. I know that we've been mentioning it a lot because we've been talking about it at every stage. But now, for real, for real, for real, Christine Sinclair has played her final match. After her professional team, the Portland Thorns, were eliminated from this season's playoffs in the Professional Soccer League in which she was playing. She's played 12 years with that club. Of course, she had retired from the national team last year, the team that she had led to 2 bronze and 1 gold medal in 3 successive Olympic Games. And a reminder that she is the all-time leading scorer in international soccer, male or female, with 190 career goals. Just again, in certain nations, they would build stadiums, statues, athletes like that. But there have been other Canadians that have made us proud over the past few weeks, over the past few days, kids and cubs in the athletic field. And one of them is someone about who we talk about a lot on the show, but her name is Gabriela Dabrowski. And she is one of Canada's best doubles players in history. For women, she might even be Canada's best female doubles player ever. But yes, she is ranked number 3 in the world in doubles, and every year at the end of the year, the teams and the players that finish the top 8 in the rankings points get to play one final tournament where they're divided into 2 pools of 4. They play a round robin against each other, and the top 2 points getters in each pool go off and play in an elimination knockout tournament for the winner, and the winner is declared the tour's season champion. So, Gabriela Dabrowski, according to Tennis Canada, wrote another chapter in the history of Canadian tennis on Saturday, becoming the first woman from the Great North to be crowned champion at the WTA finals. She and Erin Routliffe defeated Katerina Siniakova, who is the world's #1 doubles player, and by a lot, and Taylor Townsend in straight sets in the final to claim the title. The victory was revenge for the Canadian-Kiwi duo, who lost to Siniakova and Townsend in the final of Wimbledon. This time around, Dabrowski and Routliffe settled in after the very early exchanges and broke late in each set for a 7-5, 6-3 win. Just by reaching the final, Dabrowski had already made history by becoming the first Canadian woman to reach the final of the WTA finals. She is the fourth Canadian overall to get to the title match of the year-end championship, also to win it after Grant Connell, Sébastien Larreau, and Daniel Nestor, all of whom won the doubles title at the ATP finals. 4 of the first 5 games went against serve in the opening game. Siniakova fired a couple of impressive passing shots, leading to a break of Dabrowski. But the Canadian tagged her back literally in the following game when she smoked the Czech with a backhand on the break point to level at 1-1. That kicked off a run of 3 straight games for the second seeds, who broke for a 3-1 lead when Townsend could not handle a huge return from Routliffe. But the Canadian was still getting going and was broken to love to put the set back on serve. Canadian-Kiwi team nearly regained the advantage in the following game when Townsend double faulted to go down breakpoint, but Dabrowski floated her return long. And then the article goes on to describe the actual match, but it says here at the end, serving for the match proved tense for the Ottawan as she led 40-love quadruple championship point, but saw the first 3 slip away. Including a misjudged ball she let drop in for a winner to draw back to deuce. But Dabrowski made up for it with a big serve, which Siniakova drove into the net to seal the victory. She now looks for the perfect ending to her season as she heads to Laga, Spain to defend the Billie Jean King Cup title with Team Canada. So, yeah, right now, I guess beholds the Billie Jean King Cup title for Team Canada as the best team, national team in tennis. And now she is the season champion on the entire tour. So that is really big news. Also, this weekend, it was probably one of the biggest weeks in Canadian tennis history in terms of success. Denis Shapovalov, who we've mentioned on the show a while ago, who had been struggling, is back in the winner's circle at the Belgrade Open after defeating local favorite Hamad Medjedovic in straight sets in the final on Saturday. It is the second ATP Tour title of his Canadian's career and the first since 2019. Shapovalov has been as high as 10th in the world, but he had some struggles with health that dropped him out of the top 100. The win snaps a 5-match losing streak in finals for Shapovalov, who had not won since winning his first title in his first final in Stockholm in 2019. As he did for much of the week, Shapovalov relied on his dominant serve to claim victory. In the final, he fired 13 aces and won 82% of his first serve points. He won every break point in the match, saving both on his own serve and converting 2 of his chances on the Serbians. Wow, that sounds like it was a clinic. Shapovalov is one of the 2 Canadian winners on Saturday, as Gabriela Dabrowski was victorious at the WTA finals, as we mentioned. He now hopes to carry on the good form to Malaga, Spain, where he will lead Team Canada's bid for a second title at the Davis Cup, which will happen. One of them, they happened in 2 successive weeks, the women and then the men. And the Davis Cup, Canada's not the defending champion, but they won that one 2 years ago. So that happened. And then in addition to that, Kits and Cubs, there is another tennis player that we talk about a lot because her story is absolutely wonderful. Her name is Rebecca Marino, and we talked to her about her before. She had reached, I think, the top 50 in the world, or close to the top 50 in the world, when she started her first career, and had some mental health struggles, particularly having to do with stuff on social media when she wasn't winning, and they would say some very unkind things about her. Then she went away for a while, a very promising career, and then she came back, and within the space of a few years, got herself right back up, and ended having a better career. Second time around, she had as high as 38th in the world. Also suffered some injuries, dropped out of the top 100, but she's been having an exceptional end of season. according to the Midland Daily News here. Canada's Rebecca Marino came out of retirement 6 years ago feeling like she had some unfinished business. After this past week's performance at the Dow Tennis Classic, she can check at least one item off her list. Marino, a 33-year-old WA Tour veteran and regular competitor at the Dow tournament, won the singles championship of the Greater Midland Tennis Center for the first time in her career Sunday, beating 23-year-old American Alicia Parks 6-2, 6-1. It was not even close in the final. Quote, "This is my first year winning this tournament after many years of coming. With this tournament being a favorite of mine, it's nice to come away with the championship trophy," said Marino, whose previous best showing in Midland was reaching the semifinals in 2010. "It's nice to finally go all the way so many years later." Marino, who had a ranking of 38th in the world in 2011, retired from tennis in 2013 to 2018, during which time she attended the University of British Columbia, where she was a member of the women's rowing team and coached tennis. Quote, "I was pretty busy in my retirement years, but I felt like I had something left," she noted. "It was nice to come back and to come back successfully." Andy Marino played a steady counter-attacking game from the baseline and simply waited for Park to make mistakes, and Parks complied, racking up plenty of enforced errors and dribble faults, growing visibly frustrated. I knew coming in that Alicia was going to be a very tough competitor, and she hits the ball really hard, Marino said. "Well, if I could just be like a mosquito and just get constantly annoy her, put the ball in and dictate as much as I could, that might get under her skin a little bit. That was sort of my strategy, and it paid off today." Ironically, Sunday's final may have been Marino's easiest match of the week. She admitted the road championship was not without its challenges. Quote, "This week wasn't easy by any means. I felt like every match was a scrappy battle." She said, "In my first round, I had a tiebreaker. In my second round, I saved a match point. So that wasn't easy by any means. Quarterfinal match was really difficult. All the way through, it was difficult. I'm just very grateful to even be here in first place and to come up with the trophy is amazing." So what else do we have here? Description of the match. What's next on her plate? Marino noted, I'm going to be going to the Billie Jean King Cup in Malaga, Spain. I'm representing Canada and we're the defending champion. Quote, "That's the World Cup of Tennis for women. So I'm going to be hopping on a plane tomorrow and heading there and supporting the team. And we're going to be fighting our hearts out for our country," she added. So with the win, she rises to 103rd in the world. So she's just under that top 100 that gets her an automatic entry to the Australian Open. But this is the biggest title of her career in her 30s. Kicking ass, taking names. I love these types of stories. It's like that figure skater that we have. Stella Dudek, can't remember her full last name, who's in her 40s and is the current world champion in pairs. She finally found the right partner, and so I like that. People who are older than was the case when I was a kid, still competing at very, very high level in sports, and some of them having career moments, like the best results of their career, peaking later in their late 20s, in their early 30s, and even in their 40s. It's good to know that, like I said, for age is just a number. You gotta keep fighting. Who says yet? Right? There was also another win. Liam Drexel, who we also mentioned on the show. You're going to be hearing about him a lot now. Won the Saint Augustin des Morts indoor tournament hardcourt. This is here in Canada, defeating another Canadian, Alexis Galarneau, 6-1, 6-3 in the final. And this was a true number one versus number two final in this one. So it was quite a battle. And it was a good tournament for Canadians because another up-and-comer was a junior and until not too long ago, but Jaden Weeks, who's ranked 1,499th in the world. So, I mean, just starting his career. He made it all the way to the semifinals in that tournament. So 3 of the 4 semi-finalists in the tournament were Canadians in the singles. So that was a very good result for Canada there. So that's how many wins now? Marino, Shapovalov, these guys, and I don't think it stops there. Kids and Cubs. Oh yeah, Dabrowski with the main title. The winning didn't stop there for Canada. Um, we had well, winning or good performances. We had some Canadians in a final at the women's doubles tournament in Midland, Aria Arsenault and Mia Kupres. Kupres, who have been tearing it up this season as well. Both of them are now ranked in the top 200 in the world in doubles. So they just shot up. But they went all the way, losing 6-2, 6-4. Sorry, losing 2-6, 6-4, 5-10 to the number 2 seeds in the tournament. And they weren't even seeded. So they made it all the way to the final. So that was another great result for Team Canada in tennis. So lots of stuff to be proud of with our tennis players who are having, like I said, it's been an okay season, but it hadn't lived up to expectations. But what the Canadians have been accomplishing in the last month and a half, they're just, like I said, winning everything and making semifinals and finals and all over the players. It doesn't matter where they are, right? Whether they're new and up and starting, up and coming, or veterans, they just jumping up the rankings. Huge career progression. Many of them setting career highs for where they are in the top 1,000 world. It's really really good to watch. We are going to be having as Canadians some very solid tennis players to cheer for at least the next close to 10 years, with a lot of the talent that is there and just the way that the tennis program is developing them. And if I was leading any sports organization, sort of like either uh, ski jumping or luge or bobsledders looking to try to get a bigger share of the public's attention and their funding dollars, I would be going to the folks and, what did you guys do to your program to see if there's something that we can learn? Because Tennis Canada's ability, going since the days of, it started around the days of Alexandra Wozniak and Frank Dancevic, when both of them made runs, a good run top 100. I think that Alexandra Wozniak got to the top 30, and Frank Dancevic's had was just on the cusp of entering the top 50. That's when things started for us, and then Milos Raonic came soon after that, and the program has just seemed to have been, somebody had a plan, somebody executed it. They believed in it. They went and got the talent. They went and got the money. They got the resources. They built some clay courts at the National Tennis Center that wasn't there before, because a certain amount of the season is a clay court season, and we, just didn't have enough experience playing. And now it's like, there are 3 Canadian men in the top 100. We have 2 Canadian women in the top 100 and one on the verge of being in there. We have the number 3 female doubles player in the world. We've been the World Cup tennis champions for the men and the women. Now a WTA final champion. It's, like I said, it's just absolutely fantastic what that program has done. And we keep on writing to Tennis Canada to have some people to come on our show so that we can interview them, introduce them to you. But they really do have a policy with wanting to participate on political shows. They want as many people to enjoy their sport as possible, so they do not want to go on shows. Whether you vote Conservative, NDP, Liberal, Green, don't vote at all. They want you to enjoy the product. So for brand safety, they are worried, but we will keep on reaching out to them and showing them the type of interviews that we do, and begging them and saying them, please, 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 please. We do have something that we call Canadians Who Make Us Proud, and that is a political part of our show, and we would love to have you on as a part of that. But for those of you who do love tennis and do not know of it yet, Tennis Canada does have a podcast called Match Point Canada. I listen to it a lot. It is very good. The 2 hosts are charming and very knowledgeable, and they're very good at securing wide array of guests to learn a whole bunch of different stuff, not only players, but commentators and coaches and, equipment specialists and all that kind of stuff. So, it's a very, very good podcast. To it, I highly recommend it. And they're just lovely people. So, all right, kids and cubs, I think we have a show. I didn't expect that I would have this long one today, but there was a lot, I guess, more than I thought. Um, Thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it. I love my time with you. So, get some cups. It's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring, and word of mouth is priceless. And you have mouths from which we want the word to come. So please, kids and cubs, do tell your friends and peeps and poops all about us. And if you do not want to miss a show, you don't have to, because the Ray Girl, you know her, you love her, and she sponsors our pod page. Podpage.com/the True North Eager Beaver, lowercase letters with a hyphen between each one of those words. And if you go there and click subscribe, when we have something fresh off the bandwidth, it comes directly to you. You can also scan that QR code that I just made appear, and that will bring you there so that you can click subscribe. And I would like to give a special shout out to the Ray Girl, who yesterday sent my Beaver Sweetie and I such a lovely gift for our anniversary. So thank you so much. It was not necessary, but it is immensely appreciated and provoked a very, very, very warm fuzzy, I will admit. Now, kids and cubs, if you would like to support us in other ways, then you need to make like Kit Elaine and surf yourself on down to the True North Eager Beaver YouTube page, where you will find our buttons like, share, and subscribe. That QR code that just appeared there in the corner will let you go there. And if you happen to be not watching on our YouTube channel, there is a delightful chat that takes place with the members of the Dam Fam. So if ever you would like to join it one day, you just scan that QR code. That will bring you right to where you can watch us on YouTube, subscribe to us there, and come and join the fun. Right? They're really, really, really good people. I'm sure you'll enjoy them. So come on down to our YouTube page, click on our buttons, like, share, and subscribe. It makes us very happy when you do that. And that way, that helps us with the algorithm and all that good stuff. Also helps us with the algorithm if you happen to be listening to us on Apple Podcasts, if you give us some stars and some reviews. Right? Thanks a lot for that. Now, if you would like to support us in other ways, let's say financially, because we do incur some costs in bringing the show to you, that QR code up there in the corner will bring you to the Emergency Beaver Lodge Hydration Fund, where you can come to our rescue when we get parched with coffee and hot chocolate, sometimes a Caesar, maybe a Guinness. You never know. Yes. But all of it helps to keep us moist, and all of it helps to bring this show to you that you love and appreciate. And we hope that we do a good job for you. Sorry, my nose is very itchy today for some reason. So guess I'm going to kiss a fool. Job done. There you go. So, yes, if you could support us financially, we would very much appreciate that. Of course, you do not have to, and we do not expect it, because the gift of your attention and your participation is the gift that means the most to us, and we do cherish it. And we love to hear from you, so please write to us, right? Our email address is truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com. If you want to write to us on our Twitter feed, it's at True Eager. And if you would like to write to us on our Facebook page, True North Eager Beaver, and if you happen to be listening to us on YouTube, right down below in the comment section, that's where you can let us know what you think, good, bad, or ugly. And if it's ugly, please be gentle. We are tender creatures after all. From the Beaver Lot. Oh, because democracy is something that you do, right? Nova Scotia. You have an election coming up. Research your candidates, right? If there's one that you like, hey, Why not volunteer a little bit? Knock on some doors. Find out about some policy. Um, or maybe you want to call up Elections Nova Scotia and see if they might need some help at some polling stations or some advanced voting. Just get involved a little bit, all right? But do pay attention to what's going on and do research your candidates and look at the policy stuff. Look up to see if what the candidates are saying actually does make sense. Whether there are other people that are saying it, whether it's just them that are saying it, what the data is, and do a little bit of work. It's sometimes worth it, right? So that's because democracy is something that you do. And of course, if you are in British Columbia, Cloverdale Langley, same thing for you. Elections Canada will be looking for some people for advanced voting and polling stations, and you'll have some candidates there to research and help support. So please do get involved. Democracy is something that you do. Words of wisdom. Okay. This is really weird because I'm not used to this. This is where I'm used to throwing. But words of wisdom today, kids and cubs, I think would be if you're having a bad day, as yours truly was, while it is okay every now and then to say, yeah, I call this day over. Go to bed early, pull the blanket over your head. I'm not coming out till tomorrow. That's it. I'm done. Sometimes you can. And sometimes it's just too damn early in the day to do that, like 11:30 in the morning. So you got to push through, right? Nothing wrong with closing your eyes for a bit, taking a couple of deep breaths, and centering, and knowing that the shitstorm eventually will pass. Sometimes it might not pass today, or sometimes even this week. Some shitstorms last a little longer than others, but they do pass. They do pass, and all you got to do is make sure that you claim the space on which you are standing, that you ground yourself, try to slow things down as much as you can so that you have as clear a mind as possible to see an opening to make the day better when it comes, and then seize it. Fortunately, that happened yesterday, and said Beaver Sweetie turned it around for me. There's very few things that make me happier than when my Beaver Sweetie shows up of his own initiative to things that I am doing outside of our relationship, like when I'm doing a play or I'm doing a theater thing or I'm playing a sport, and he comes to watch. He's my biggest fan. He's my biggest cheerleader. He's my biggest supporter. And some people, when somebody they love shows up to watch, they get a little nervous. But I don't know, something kicks in. I just want to put on a good show. So he ends up being my good luck charm. I end up having a better performance. My performance goes up once he shows up. So, and that is what happened yesterday. So, which allowed us to win the game. So there you go. So yes, there will usually be an opening at some point during the day when you're having a bad day to make it better, even if it's just like for half an hour or an hour, just to get a little bit of oasis of sanity moment in it. But if you're too preoccupied and with the negative soundtrack, or punishing yourself or beating yourself up or being angry at other people because it's a bad day, you might not notice that open. So stopping, closing your eyes, grounding yourself, centering, a couple of deep breaths sometimes can help you take on the day, especially when the days decided to take you on. So those are my words of wisdom. Turns out I had a lot of them. There you go. All right. I guess it is time for me to cue the clock. And once again, to see whether I can stick the landing. Here we go.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music.
All right, there, kitties and cubbies. Just looking through the chat here. Yes, you're right, Kidland M. Thank you. I'm glad you mentioned that. And Canada won Game 3 of the rivalry series to fade 2-1. The series will continue in Canada in February, I think. Yes, you are absolutely correct on that, Kitlinda. Thank you for mentioning that. That is true. Kit Sassy goes, perhaps a side podcast called Eager Beaver Sports Edition. Your network is growing, and now you need more channels, kind of like Paul's ASMR. Just a thought. It's kind of funny that you mentioned that because I was talking to Mr. Otter, I think, and it came up like about a week and a half, not a week, a month and a half ago or something like that. That somebody was suggesting that I should do a sports show. And I thought, well, no, it'd be kind of strange because I'm not a big follower of, not the hugest follower of the big four, right? Well, basketball, soccer, and baseball. I tend to be more of a summer games and Olympic games kind of a sports follower. So it would be an interesting kind of sports show because, if ever I'd be talking about baseball, I wouldn't know any of the players whatsoever. And speaking of that, remind me, kids, another show that I need to do, Canadians that make us proud about a Canadian that was on the World Series winning team. See, I know so little about it, I can't even name which team it was, what the name of the player is. So that would require some extra research for those ones, or maybe I would have to get a co-host who knows a little bit more about those ones. But yeah, I have indeed thought about it, doing something sports-like. So I'm glad that you guys are talking about it. That's pretty interesting. All right, kids and cubs, thank you so much. I want you to have a most beaverific day. So if you can do that for me, please, that would be wonderful. Okay, love you all. Go forth and be frothy and frolic.